Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to today's Conversation for Equity. Today, we have a fantastic panel lined up around a topic that is particularly important to employers and to the workforce at large. We're going to talk about the value of internships, apprenticeships, work embedded learning experiences, and those connected to those work embedded learning experiences. And we are so fortunate to have an amazing group of experts joining us today for the conversation. So if in case you're lost or you don't know where you are in a webinar by the Washington Employers for Racial Equity. We're also called WARE. And we were founded around the principle that collective action towards an inclusive future for all Washingtonians is possible when we move together in a collective, shared fashion. We understand that a lot of the things that happen in workforces and workplaces with regard to equity are connected to particular systemic and historical gaps that require interventions and require us to get on the same page with each other on how we actually learn to see those gaps and actually do something about them. And so we've invited some folks to come in and talk to us about the work they're doing in the internship space, apprenticeship space, and work embedded learning experience space, because that work contributes to making our region most competitive. The organizations, I want to talk a little bit about WARE first. The organizations who joined the coalition coalesced around a shared set of beliefs that are divided into two major opportunity zones. One of them is about creating and cultivating inclusive workplace cultures. And the other is about how we engage in contracting diverse suppliers, right? And with inclusion as the primary principle, but also understanding that some of the things that are catalysts to people being excluded from opportunity run along racial lines. So one of the things that we hear most from our members is that it's a promising opportunity to build and retain a strong workforce through apprenticeships, internships, and work embedded learning experiences. They're different things. So one of the things we know is that workplace learning experiences can happen for people all across their stages of their career. And so what I love about the group that we have together today is that they're coming at this from widely different perspectives. I'll introduce them in a moment. One of the other goals of work embedded learning experiences, apprenticeships, and internships is that this actually helps professionals and early career professionals or those changing and switching careers build those durable networks they need to become more resilient and continue along their career trajectories, and actually helps in a tremendous way meet current labor demands and current labor needs. So with that, what we're hoping to kind of learn from our panelists today is the role and value of internships, apprenticeships, and work embedded learning experiences, who these organizations are, how they partner to build those resilient talent pipelines, explore some of the equity considerations, as we are a coalition that is rooted in the shared value of equity and inclusion, explore what that commitment looks like in their organizations, how these panelists perhaps engage each other in connection with one another if they do, and then learn a little bit more about how you can connect to their work. The audience for WARE is primarily employers who are interested in advancing equity, but we also have partners in our network from various different stakeholders, organizations, and community-facing organizations. So with that, let me introduce our panel today. I'm going to start with Michael Davey. Michael Davey represents the King County Workforce Development Council and is their director of programs. The organization is committed, and Michael is committed to pursuing the building of stronger, more equitable pathways to opportunity for underserved communities. For more than 25 years, Michael has worked at the intersections of workforce, education, and employment to develop and support high-impact programs that benefit communities in need. His work focuses on partnerships, strategy, innovation, and alignment to improve results and create system change. Thanks and welcome, Michael.
Excellent. Well, thank you and good. It is afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And thank you for taking a little slice of your afternoon to spend with us today. Today's conversation on work-based learning is one of my favorite topics. So I popped out of bed today and couldn't wait to get here and talk with you all about what we're doing at the Workforce Development Council around that intersection of work, employment, and training, with a specific focus on equity and pathways to good jobs. But before we get into kind of the nuts and bolts of some of that, I did want to take a little bit of time and where I think it might be helpful to talk a little bit about the background of what is the Workforce Development Council, because sometimes that is a interesting question and people know a little bit and they may be dangerous enough to just get out there. But we are the local workforce board in Seattle-King County. We're the regional entity. We're overseen by the city and the county, the executive and the mayor. And we direct and coordinate the local workforce development efforts underneath the federal legislation and the framework of WIOA, sometimes it's referred to as, but it is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And as the workforce board, we are that connector and aligning, both job training, education, and employment services to meet the needs of both job seekers and employers within the community. So we, as the workforce board, we serve all four corners of the county. So we serve from Shoreline to Bellevue, down to Auburn and Federal Way, serving the whole county. And a lot of people will know us more for the oversight of what's branded in Washington State as the WorkSource centers. So that's those employment networks and offices scattered all throughout the county. We've got two different centers, one at North Seattle, one down in Auburn, and then we've got what's called affiliates within the WorkSource system, and that's at South Seattle College, downtown Seattle, and our busiest site in the whole county is the one right off Rainier. And then outside of that, we also have connection sites. We have 38 connection sites all throughout the county at our local colleges, at our local libraries, partnered with our community-based organizations so that we get the job and training services where the community live. And in any given year, we serve about 42,000 job seekers every year in all of those 39 surrounding cities. So you can imagine it's a big system. And, I'm sure you all know this, but we are the 13th largest metro area in the U.S. And Seattle-King also serves 1/3 of the state's labor market. And, I know that this network is part of that employer network, and we in Seattle-King we hold 70,000 employers in the county. So we've got a lot of work on our hands here at the Workforce Board, and what we do, how we drive that work is driving with our mission and vision, and really that is when we think about that, it's about serving all people in the region, regardless of race, regardless of ethnicity, so that they can share in the economic prosperity, the economic growth from the worker standpoint, the employer standpoint, and the general community too. So we want to ensure that racial equity is embedded and threaded through everything we do at the Workforce Board. So that means prioritizing communities that have been historically and systematically marginalized, and that's our work. That's what we do every day. And so what we do in terms of how do we support work-based learning, we've got 3 different federal programs that help support and advance that mission. We've got adult programming, dislocated worker programming, and then our youth programming. So I always like to say we serve job seekers 16 to 116. So we really want to make sure that we're casting that net wide and bringing the services to the individuals that need that support. So we've got, we work hand in hand with these programs that have dedicated funding to support work-based learning. So that means, engaging the job seekers across the workforce system in both the career readiness, getting folks ready for that job experience, and then, getting them connected to, one that aligns with their career paths, their career interests, and then working with the employers to, structure and plan an experience that's both hands-on, in demand, and really does align with the skill building for the workforce of the future. The great part about all this is that, it's 100% subsidized too. So we have those federal dollars that are available to help pay the wages and help pay, the supports for the job seekers in those positions. So free of charge for the employers. You can't beat that deal. And we've got, we do ask in return, from the employer standpoint, that structured, safe learning environment there that's focused on in-demand skills and building that support and growth, because at the end of the day, we're looking for the win-win-win situation, the win for the job seeker, the win for the employer, and then the win for the community when we're thinking about, how we approach this work with an equity focus, because it is about, getting that emerging top talent in our area into those pathways, those pipelines for the workforce of the future. So really excited to have this conversation today. And I always know before we get going too further, I always have this question around, hey, is internships seasonal? Is it summer only? And the answer is no, it's year round. We do this work in partnership with employers, in partnership with job seekers. So we're wanting to go when it's right for the business, when it's right for the job seekers, so that we make that matchmaking opportunity that really fits for the supply side and the demand side of this whole equation. And when we think about on-the-job training, WEX, apprenticeship, we're all the above. So we want to work with employers to make sure that we're building pathways that really align with their needs.
Well, hey, Michael, I do appreciate you gave such a thorough introduction to your work. I want to leave a little bit for our conversation, so I'm going to transition from you, and then I want to introduce our other panelists, and then we'll circle back on some of the things that you introduced, because I think you've dropped some really interesting gems into the conversation for today. So let me go to Jolenta next. Jolenta Coleman-Bush is the Director of Education, Workforce, and AI Skilling for the Washington State team at Microsoft Philanthropies. In her role, Jolenta oversees education partnerships and investments, driving initiatives that enhance educational opportunities and workforce development in the region. And Jolenta, I'll ask you to talk about really how big Microsoft is, right? It's as one of our regional's largest employers. It is significant what the organization is investing in this way. So with over 20 years of experience in policy and program administration within the education and workforce sectors, Jolenta has extensive experience in philanthropy, nonprofit management, and corporate responsibility. Before Jolenta joined Microsoft, she worked in public education policy at the City of Seattle and with the League of Education Voters, where she supported initiatives like college and career readiness. So I'm sensing a theme, a through line here. And then, of course, Jolenta's background and experience includes a master's degree in ed policy from UW, and as a fellow Husky and MEP alum. Yes. Go Dogs. So thank you for joining us today. And maybe what I'll do, just a little bit different than Michael, I want to welcome you to the conversation. We'll go do the rest of the introductions, and then we'll get deeper into what Microsoft is doing and why this space is important to you. So welcome aboard, Jolenta. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Should I share now in terms of?
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
I just really quickly, I think, yes, Microsoft is a big employer here in Washington State, and we are constantly, especially for my purview, constantly thinking about the skills, credentials, and experiences that Washington students need in order to take advantage of our growing economy. I mean, that is the North Star. 72% of our jobs will require some sort of post-high school degree or credential. And so how do we support students in seeing themselves in our economy? And I think work-based learning opportunities and career-connected learning is one piece of that pie. And so that's why we care. And so we kind of lean into this in a multitude of ways. One, through our kind of philanthropic investments, sitting at various tables, workforce development and councils and tables and task force. We also kind of do our own internship programs and experiences and bringing, computer science to high school students, as well as younger students, coding skills to younger students. And so we're constantly thinking about how to support students in getting that glimpse of themselves, to see themselves in tech. And so that's why we care, and that's why we're here. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to a very rich discussion. There's just so much goodness here. Angie, welcome. So let me give Angie's introduction real quick, or give her bio real quick. So Angie Mason-Smith is the Senior Program Officer at Washington STEM. She has been in that role since 2021. Prior to joining Washington STEM, Angie worked with the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction and in their Core Plus project coordination team, and then also worked in STEM learning fields since 2018. She came to this work through college athletics, but also being a very design thought leader and system thought leader, recognized the importance of STEM and STEM education and access for students, and has really, given a lot of her time and passion to advancing those programs within Washington STEM. Angie, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I am excited to be here along some colleagues that I get to see in a lot of these spaces doing this work together. We at Washington STEM, we are an education nonprofit that will say we leverage STEM for social change. We kind of are that messy middle in a lot of spaces where we support a lot of work that is happening in different regions on the ground, but we also get to sit at the table at a lot of state agencies and do a lot of work in policy, right? Helping understand what is working in our systems on the ground and helping inform how we address our policies and get those who really hold those policy levers to understand how they have the opportunity to pull them so that we can make more equitable pathways for students, cohesive experiences that build upon each other, so that they get little bits of understanding of a variety of opportunities, see themselves in it, and have an understanding of how to access them to really work on what our goal is working on, just what Jolenta said, that gap of workforce and credential attainment, and how we help kids kind of get there. And then we also are leaders in the Career Connect Washington initiative. And so, we're part of the statewide initiative that is really building these career connected learning experiences and has funding to really build those programs with an intentional understanding of those who are misrepresented and how we build programs and access for those students.
That's fantastic. And I love that you touched on policy, right? Because that, I think, tends to be one of the things that we overlook sometimes about the significance and importance of looking at state level policy. So I appreciate that that's an important part of your work as well. Maybe we'll give you an opportunity to circle back and talk about that a little bit more.
I'd love to.
Okay, fantastic. All right, we'll go to our last panelist. Nineveh, thank you so much for joining us today. And just a quick introduction to Nineveh. Nineveh does program execution and direction for the United Negro College Fund, and has over a decade of experience around communication strategy, and external kind of program development and execution. She cares deeply about fostering trust and driving client satisfaction at all organizational levels. In her role, she's helped companies with internal and external communications efforts and has become a key part of UNCF's emphasis on building a larger and broader footprint in the Pacific Northwest and in the Seattle region specifically, specifically for UNCF. And when Nineveh introduces herself, she can maybe talk a little bit about the fact that UNCF primarily focuses and works with HBCUs and college-bound students, but you're also connecting to and doing some work locally here as well. Welcome, Nineveh. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today to share about the work that we're doing here. So first, UNCF, also known as United Negro College Fund, is a nation's largest and most effective minority education organization, providing millions of dollars in scholarships annually to support the educational needs of Black students, students at historically Black universities and colleges, and other students of color. And while UNCF has made great strides in breaking down financial barriers to college access, we understand that true success means preparing graduates for meaningful careers. So, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have launched a new leg or arm to UNCF. It's UNCF Pacific Northwest Hire, 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 helping interns reach excellence, which is a program that addresses this need of providing career readiness training and corporate exposure. And so everything that you have already said today, that's why we're here. That's why we launched Hire. And we're just excited to share some of the things that we're doing and what we're trying to build here in the Pacific Northwest. So thank you for having me.
Oh, fantastic. That's so great. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit deeper, and we want to get to know each of you a little bit more and a little bit more about your organization. And Michael did such a great job with such a comprehensive answer. I'm going to go reverse order, and then Michael, you can kind of end with anything else additional that you'd like to add to our first question. So, why is the work that your organization doing important, and how does it make an impact towards a future where we have robust talent pipelines, that we are really getting individuals into these fantastic career opportunities, either with your organizations or with partners, organizations that partner with your organization. So Nineveh, maybe I'll tweak the question a little bit for you, because you're about really building those internship opportunities and cultivating that and bringing those students to those opportunities. So maybe from the UNCF perspective, you could talk about why that's important. Why is your work important?
Absolutely. So through internships with our partner companies, students gain hands-on experience developing critical skills and exploring their career interests. At the same time, they bring fresh perspectives and ideas to their host organizations and are able to build valuable connections for future opportunities. This work is critical because access to real-world experiences helps to level the playing field, ensuring that students from underrepresented backgrounds can transition from education to meaningful, rewarding careers. As we continue building the Hire program, we are eager to grow our partnerships with companies that share our commitment to developing the next generation of diverse talent. So that's really what we're all about, helping to bridge the gap and provide access and opportunities for students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. And so one of the things that I get asked about UNCF specifically, and this is just a little bit of a follow-up question, is, what does it mean to be a UNCF scholarship participant or to participate in Hire? Maybe you can help people understand, what does it actually mean to be in your program?
Yes, absolutely. So just what I said a few minutes ago, it's really helping to provide access and opportunity. It is really, as many of you may know, it can be difficult when you don't have connections, built-in connections through your lived experience. And so though you are able to go and get an education, and again, UNCF helps to bridge that opportunity as well through scholarships. But then now, how are you going to bridge from having an education to actually having a meaningful career? And so that's where we realize, there is a gap here. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we have an amazing college readiness program called Portfolio Project, where we're already working with high school students, helping to walk them through the application process and bridging their opportunity to go from high school to college. And so what we recognize is, okay, students can get an education, but then what's next? So that's where higher comes in. It is very important and critical that we also help to ensure their success for life after college.
Mm-hmm. That sounds great. And it's interesting because earlier this year, I had a conversation with Allison Francis, who's the Chief Diversity Officer at Costco, and she was a UNCF scholarship recipient. And so she's, a vice president at Costco now, and followed her whole career all the way to executive leadership, and a lot of it came from her experiences as a UNCF scholarship recipient. So I appreciate that. It's neat to see that through line and how this actually is a launch pad. So let's go to Angie next. Can you talk about, what is the importance of the work you do at WASDEM, and why you feel like it's important towards progressing that future and building those talent pipelines?
Yeah, I think I think it's really important to create opportunities early for kids to really gain affinity and relationship to those STEM literacy skills that are needed for the economy that we have in Washington. And I think oftentimes, we say STEM and sometimes people go to just technology, right? Or just, or we have our own mindset of what those are. Right? But really expanding on how important those skills are at a young age to inspire inquiry-based problem solving, real world application, so that they can join a lot of the jobs that don't exist, right? The quick pivot we've had to do to what does a job in AI look like, right? And so being able to prepare kids for transferable skills, and, Career Connect Washington has really established, framework, into law that has, Career Explorer leading to career prep that leads to career launch, which is that paid work experience and apprenticeships, right? And so understanding that, one-off events don't always have the impact we want them to have to kids, but how do we provide these stackable experiences where they have an interest in something and know how to and explore and engage in that. And then I think that will allow us to diversify what those options are. You mentioned coming from a career in athletics, where I saw working in college football that those African-American men believed their only path was football. And that continues to inspire me because I knew some of their skills, their aspirations aligned to other things. How do we help share those beliefs with folks at a young age to gauge that affinity? And then we have the resources that does it. The system, Career Connect Washington, builds on an already robust system in our state of apprenticeship, local workforce boards, industry engaged. But it really becomes that connective tissue that helps bring all of that together in coordination. So it becomes easy for those job seekers and learners to be able to access these variety of resources and opportunities. And it is also expanded on opportunities coming into our state for other funding to be able to continue to build on these with that infrastructure. So it has allowed some real intentional efforts in that place, and that's really important.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it's interesting how, the connection is working with students and, getting to them where they're at, and helping them to understand how transferable their skills are. I think it's so true that a lot of people, when they think of STEM, think of just programming or coding and aren't thinking more broadly about all of the different applications, right? And we all touch this. So I love how comprehensive and statewide your outreach is through WASTEM, but also through the Career Connect Washington program. I happen to know a little bit about it, but I'm excited that this is such a powerful program that benefits our state. So with that, maybe Jolenta, from the workforce perspective, from the employer perspective, why are the investments you make through Microsoft Philanthropies and Microsoft in general? I mean, obviously you're thinking about Microsoft as the employer and the person who wants to hire this great talent, but do you think that you have kind of a larger role to play as a large employer, in building that durable talent pipeline and network?
Absolutely. Well, yes, we would love, jobs for Washington students, right? But we only have a small part in that. And we want to make sure that all students can take advantage of the opportunity here, whether it's in tech at Microsoft or it's with another sector in business here in the state. And so it is really, really important to make sure that's the reason why we invest across the learning continuum is really to kind of spark that interest in STEM or whatever passion they have, right? Continue that interest, go into higher ed pathways, and then leading into career and opportunity and being really able to contribute back to our state. We really want our students to, be able to be full contributors and participants in our state. And so that is what it's all about. We're playing that kind of small part, but we do see even us giving that opportunity via worksite tours or internships or hour of code. It is sparking that interest and being able to see themselves as a full participant within our economy. And that's what it's about. And so that's what really is our North Star, is being able to have a Washington State be a place where everyone can kind of thrive.
Mm-hmm. And so many follow-on implications of a strong workforce, right? And that investment in community and making this place vibrant. And that becomes a really neat kind of reinforcing mechanism, right? So when we are recruiting from other places in the country, it's like, wow, Seattle's where it's at, or Washington State's where it's at, right? So I think that's an important responsibility of the employer participants in making our communities, vibrant and thriving, resilient and competitive. So I love that answer. Thank you, Jolenta. Okay, Michael. So maybe you can just bring us home just with kind of one thing that would be sort of an area of deep impact. And I know with the Workforce Development Council and the work that you do, that you're looking across the career perspective, right? So not just students in college, but also in other phases or stages of one's career, re-entry, and those kinds of things. So maybe you could talk, specifically to that, and then we'll go on to our next question.
Yeah, definitely. We do have an interest in building pathways and pipelines that are cradle to career, and really looking at the whole spectrum of where folks are coming at in their career pathway, and to do that, we do that through some system building and partnership development. We know that we can't do it alone, and that while Seattle and King County is rich in great programs, we're system poor. We need to find ways that we're making these connections, making them stronger, that when individuals are graduating high school, graduating college, returning to the community, that they have the wraparound supports needed to be able to get on a pathway and know how to navigate themselves through. So we are in the business of creating a system and connections within all the different stakeholders in the community.
Mm-hmm. And I do appreciate that your emphasis is around that ecosystem and building that and making sure that there's kind of a durable mesh that supports workforce development and pipeline building. That's outstanding. Thank you so much. So maybe each of you can name one bit of kind of notable progress that you'd like to share with the audience, something big that really demonstrates a win for your organization, for your system, or or how you work here in the Pacific Northwest, or Washington State specifically. Maybe if I can start with Angie this time, if that's okay, and then I'll go from Angie to Nineveh to Jolenta, and Michael, you'll be our caboose.
Yeah, I think I'll share with Career Connect Washington hitting its 5-year celebration, which really started as a governor's initiative, and for that to now shift into a more permanent structure across a public-private partnership. Washington STEM is the implementation partner lead. I get to serve in that role alongside my colleagues at the Washington State Achievement Council, Employment Security Department, and Washington Roundtable. So it's a really great combination of employer driven and the relationship with what's happening in communities, and working closely with our government agencies to do this. So really hitting that place of it's in its permanent structure, and really making some notable progress in that space. So I think that is something that is really exciting to see it in that space. I think we're at about 20% increase overall of career launch programs since the start, and that's through the pandemic, where hands-on in-person learning was a little bit more minimal. But a big thing is that bringing those relationships and coalition and being that connective tissue to those already great programs across the state to continue to build this. So now we're able to fund programs that are more gaps in the continuum, and less just programs to build programs and opportunities, but done with a lot more intentionality and in partnership with different community-based organizations and different voices at the table to ensure those programs meet and the needs of different populations as well. So we're able to shift into more intentional programming, which I think will continue to increase those opportunities for priority populations as well, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I also am curious about, and each of you can think about how this is relevant for you. And I've always been curious about how we figure out how to communicate what labor market needs matched with what students are interested in learning and what they're learning in school. So, and whatever that education track is, whether it's higher ed or community college or technical school. So I think that it sounds, Angie, like you guys are really trying to close that gap, right?
Yeah, we really are, and try to align with systems that are in place, like the development of the high school and beyond plan. And so how can we use the data and relationship and voice, the student voice of what those aspirations are, to be able to align those opportunities and experiences and ensure that we have employers at the table that are able to meet that need. And I think one thing that tends to be something that I'm super passionate about is, as we continue to say, like, okay, you may not have to go to this 4-year college, and industry says that they will take this certificate. How are we also working with employers to ensure that they are changing their hiring practices, right? That those with different credentialing and experience opportunities have the same opportunities as those that have traditional 4-year degree. And if they need those 4-year degrees, how do they get into industry and get opportunities to upskill and continue to build on that experience when they get in? So, it's a combination of kind of bringing that all together to hear that student voice in alignment and ensure that it aligns with those needs of employers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So Nineveh, from the, when you're working with students as part of the UNCF scholarship program, how do you help them understand what labor market demands are and how to kind of align their interests and skill sets and their, education programs to what the workforce needs are of the future?
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to share. We look at what the students are interested in, and just to go back to your original question, also, we are building, and working and trying to grow. But thank you for the opportunity for allowing us to pause, because we can celebrate some significant strides in working with students to expose them to organizations. And over the past 3 years, we've successfully connected students with partner companies. We worked with those students. We helped to prep to get them ready for the workplace. There are a lot of things that we can't take for granted that they know, because some things they don't understand about the corporate life. So we do work with them to sort of get them ready. And they have been provided with real world exposure and opportunity to build essential skills. So we're definitely working closely with our students. And in looking ahead, we're just committed to expanding on these efforts and forging new partnerships and with organizations that are dedicated to offering meaningful work experiences and career opportunities. And by doing so, we aim to continue to support our students, their educational journeys, as well as helping to equip them to enter the workforce as confident, skilled professionals, prepared to contribute to organizational success. So everything that we do here in the Pacific Northwest, from our portfolio project college readiness programs, we work very closely with students. And now with hire, helping our interns reach excellence, we definitely are building and exposing and helping them to have opportunities for corporate success.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, Jolenta, Microsoft, do you like some wins? And then anything else that you want to share kind of in the same vein of Angie and Nineveh?
Yeah, I think lots of wins. I just want to really point to kind of what Andrew talked about in terms of Career Connect Washington. I think it provided, we're 5 years in, but it provided our state, one, a framework to really snap to, common language, and it's building that muscle for partnership. And so a few places where I think that we had some wins because we had this framework is, as we think about Explore and getting exposure to students, it's kind of, we can go to districts now and say, hey, like, we would love to come in and teach coding. So now next week is Computer Science Education Week. We're going to be in over 100 classrooms. Our employees volunteering and doing that hour of code. When we think about prep, we are partnering with Washington Alliance of Better Schools, right? And getting students on campus, right? And then if we think through like the internship piece and that final kind of step of getting them on campus, getting them paid, building their social capital, et cetera, we have really strong partnership with nonprofits that kind of help us recruit students from under-resourced backgrounds, help them prep for those opportunities, and then really, guide them along our internship pathway, which allows for more success and retention of those students. So when I think about the success over the last couple of years, I really truly believe Career Connect Washington has provided that framework and that shared vision and mission that allows companies like ours to kind of like see ourselves in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great. And Michael, you're up. So, wins. Talk to me about what's been great going on, and what can you guys hang your hat on? We've been through kind of a tough period from just a workforce perspective. What would you like to share?
Yeah, no, definitely. Great question. And, we've got lots of wins that we can talk about. I think put a pot of coffee on, we got a lot to discuss. But, we're really looking at ways of, building the workforce of the future in a human-centered way. So, a lot of the cool projects that we're leading on right now, we're we're honored to oversee in partnership with the State Department of Commerce community reinvestment plan, and so we're overseeing about $7 million specifically targeted to marginalized communities, and bringing in what we have is a guaranteed basic income program that has $1,000 incentives paired with match savings, so that when we're thinking about building pipelines and pathways and having to overcome barriers that are financial barriers to keep folks on track with training and employment, these are ways that we're bundling services in a human-centered way that really is showing some impactful, life-changing opportunities that are building in that ways that we're building these work-based learning experiences to earn and learn, to match, to asset building, to wealth building, to really move the needle on self-sufficiency. So we're just really excited to continue the partnership with Department of Commerce and really push forward in a human-centered wraparound approach in developing the future of the workforce.
That's amazing. That's outstanding. So I want to talk a little bit about the critical partnerships, right? And so Jolenta, Angie, you guys mentioned that you are very strong, you are strongly connected on Career Connected Learning and Career Connect Washington. Are there other kind of core critical partnerships? Do you guys partner with Michael over at the King County Workforce Development Council? How does all your work kind of connect, or does it, or should it? Can we start with, Angie, I was just going to go to you. Can we start with you?
I was just going to say, absolutely. I think, I actually think that's what our local level folks need, is more coordination and alignment. There is enough opportunities and work to do kind of for everyone. So how we continue to bridge and bring together. In the Career Connect Washington space, we were able to secure federal funding for the Good Jobs federal funding that created $23 million into the state specifically for BIPOC job seekers or those displaced through the pandemic. And it expanded our partnerships. So we do have 4 local workforce boards that are sectorial partners that are doing amazing work. And those partnerships is that really important piece to ensure that more people are at the table to be able to bring that. And we're seeing stuff that then allows employers to engage differently. So I'll use an example that over in Spokane, they had a CNA training program that they created a dual language program to increase the opportunity for immigrant population coming in to learn the program and learn it in English language too, to have a higher success rate in passing the test. But also it creates for Providence, who is the partner in that, for them to create a workforce that speaks the language of the community, right? And so it's double in that aspect. In these sectorial partnerships that the workforce board is convening over there, then there's other employers at the table that are like, wait, what did you do? We want to do that. That's interesting. Tell me more. And so able to kind of leverage that peer-to-peer relationship to expand engagement and opportunities in that space. And so I think that is an example of kind of that the partnership space that we, as we continue to grow and bring people in, is really important. So yeah, we all kind of run into each other in a lot of spaces, and I think we are continuously working hard to do better to build those relationships and find ways to weave funding opportunities that expands it. Be able to leverage each other's resources and support is another way that will only continue to benefit our communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you're actively looking for those partnerships and those opportunities. I think for such a long time, you're operating in your own silo, and we can reach more, do more, and and really get closer to our goals when we're working in that shared ecosystem. And actually it helps to understand each other's strengths and superpowers and capabilities, right? That's awesome. So from the employer perspective, Jolenta, this question is probably a little flushed differently for you, but do you work with other employers? I mean, how does, what does that kind of partnership look like when you're thinking about workforce support and workforce development?
Yeah, of course. I think a lot of what we do is working with other employers, or the tables that CCW provides, or the Washington Roundtable, et cetera, where we're sharing kind of what we're doing, we're understanding what others are doing. I think one thing that I would like to talk about in terms of partnership too is that as a large global company, we can build an internship program, right? And if we build it, they will come. There are kids that will apply. But how are we strategically building in partnership with community so that those that may not have access to the information on our career web page, or may not have a parent that works at Microsoft, et cetera, is getting the information, and not only getting the information, but getting support in applying for the roles here, et cetera. So a lot of our partnerships and the way that we're approaching it is, that divide and conquer, finding those that are closest to community so that students across the state can have access to the opportunities here at the company. And we are, of course, always sharing kind of what we're doing with, a lot of our partners and whatnot. But that's, I think, core to our partnership is with community, and making sure our nonprofit partners are aware of what's happening here at our company so that they can best support students and families on the ground. So I think that is truly what's core to our partnering.
Yeah, that's all outstanding. I appreciate that. So I'll go to Michael. Michael, can you talk about partnerships? Who do you partner with King County Workforce Development Council? I know you're working at a lot of different levels, but who are your key partners?
Yeah, no, definitely. We can't do the work alone. We've got our traditional workforce partnerships, thinking about industry, government, labor, college, the K-12 system, our community-based providers, really anyone that'll answer the phone when we call. We're open for the partnership. But at the end of the day, we approach it in that we always want to make the table bigger. So as we're engaging community, hearing voices of lived experiences, having ways of bringing community perspectives in mind when we're thinking about co-designing our programs, our approaches, our strategies. We want to make sure that that's reflected by the voices and the priorities of the community. So we definitely look for those non-traditional workforce voices that are leading and really guiding us for the future. So we're always open for making the table a little bit bigger.
Outstanding. And Nineveh, who do you partner with presently? I know primarily employers, but are there other system partners, or are you working with local governments or anything of that nature with regard to expanding your UNCF programs or access to them?
Yes, thank you for asking. So really, one of our critical partners here for hire is our national UNCF organization with its 80 plus years of service to the community. And to Jolenta's point, we are an organization that is close to the community. So we leverage the extensive database that they have with students that are looking for opportunities, with the relationships that they have, our UNCF national organization with HBCU colleges and universities. And so we leverage that. There is an extensive leadership training and development program that is already in place at our national corporate level that helps to ensure that students are kicked off successfully to their places of work. So we leverage that. And then here locally, we have some crucial partnerships with some local organizations, companies such as Alaska Airlines, Costco Corporation, and Teague. They have been instrumental in helping us to kick off our program, and we have been fostering the relationships with them over the past few years. They're helping us to build talent pipelines. They are partnering with us to take on students. And so that, as we continue to collaborate with those partners nationally with our corporate office, as well as the organizations here, we're just helping to grow our program. And we are also partnering with local, to your point, Shoreline, governmental organizations as well. We work not only in the greater Seattle area, but also in the Portland area as well. So this summer, we were able to partner with a local governmental organization in Portland to ensure that high school students were able to have work experience this summer. So we're doing a little bit of that as well. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, fantastic. So we have about 6 minutes left, and we would like to make sure that we do a couple things before we end. One, see if we've got some questions from our audience. So we'll have a little bit of Q&A. But I'd also like to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you all. And so, I understand that you also look for and are soliciting and recruiting partners in your work. And so those of you who are able to see the chat window, you'll see us paste the links for our participants today who are looking for partnerships. And so we'd love it if you would follow up with them and get in touch if you're interested. And it looks like we don't have any audience questions, so we'll focus on kind of our last our last kind of main question, and if our producers can drop the contact information into the chat, we'll do our last question. And if there are there aren't questions from the audience, that's great. We will go to our close for today. So obviously, I mentioned at the top of the hour that the WARE Coalition is about driving towards a shared path to equity. We think that we want to bring this kind of equity lens to asking organizations like yours, particularly if you're doing work within marginalized communities, to give us an example of how you think about or integrate equity. At the top, in your introductions, you talked about some of your organizational mission statements around equity and access and working in the interest of all people. Can you maybe give one example of a way in which those equity values are demonstrated in your work? And maybe we'll just do a quick round with you, and then we'll go to close our conversation for today. May I start with Jolenta, because you're going to be our outlier from the employer perspective?
Yeah, the theme that you're going to hear me say over and over again is this idea of partnership, right? We really, truly want all students to have access to the skills, credentials, and experience that are really going to help them thrive in this local economy. And so really thinking about who the community messengers are, how do we build programs that are inclusive of those that are from under-resourced populations, and especially those that are underrepresented in tech and STEM. And so to do that, I think it requires strong, deep partnerships with nonprofits, government, other business leaders, and most of all, students and families. And so I think that is the work ahead, and that's what we will continue to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Nineveh, can we go to you next, and then we'll go to Angie, and then Michael, you can be our caboose today.
Yes, thank you. So really at the core of our work is just that. It is equity. It is the pursuit of access and opportunities for the students that we serve. Our goal is simply to create a clear and equitable path from education to an inclusive workforce. We want to ensure that marginalized individuals have tools, resources, and connections needed to succeed. So that is what we do every day. We are trying to address barriers to opportunity. And I'll just end with saying that not only do we want to support the aspirations of our students and help them to meet their needs, but we are also interested in helping to meet the growing needs for a diverse talent base in the corporate sector. We want to help to build pipelines that benefit both individuals and organizations.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Angie.
Yeah, I think building off of both what was previously said, there is we have started engaging more community-based organizations that are BIPOC-led and BIPOC-serving to understand just even the challenges to accessing the funding that we have to build programs, and then been able to take what we've heard and inform how we change our practices. So back to that policy and practices piece. So for example, we consistently heard the challenge of many of these funding are reimbursement based. And so our partners at Employment Security were able to help shift it so that they can get 20% upfront, so that it takes that burden off to increase access. So we are continuously engaging with folks to understand how does the work we roll out doesn't create new systems and new barriers, but how are we really being intentional of creating broader opportunities.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And then Michael, I'll give you the last word of an example of an equity principle that is demonstrated at King County Workforce Development Council. And then I'll close this out for today.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And, again, advancing equity is at the heart of what we do, and the way we think about it is that, that requires thoughtful and intentional approaches to the ways that we design, deliver, outreach, our programs and opportunities. So that goes to, understanding the context, the disparities that exist, and ways that we can develop partnerships that really help make bridges and close those gaps. And so that, in making sure that, the community conversations inform our design, our partnerships, so that when we're talking about access, we're also delivering on results too. Because at the end of the day, we want to see, these successful pathways lead to, good jobs that are family sustaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And let me just say for the record, for everyone, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jolenta, Angie, and Nineveh for offering us your time and your just fantastic and comprehensive expertise today. This is such a critical conversation. You do such important and impactful work in the space. And I'm so grateful that you spent the hour with us today. Thank you to the team at TPN who helped us produce today's program, and to LP Expertise who helped us with communications and promotion for our event. And thanks to the folks who stopped by today and spent the lunch hour with us. We can't do this work without you, and we appreciate the employers who support the coalition and our shared commitments to equity. With that, we have more great topics and speakers lined up for 2025. So stay in touch, sign up for our newsletter to keep track of what we're doing with All Things Where. And if you don't follow us on LinkedIn or find us on YouTube, you can do that as well. We're pretty easy to find. And as always, I'm available and I can be reached at Sherline@employersforequity.org. Thank you so much and have an amazing day. Thanks, everyone.